Hi, my name is Misha, and I'm here with my colleague and co-host, George Michaelopoulos, and this is Hegemonix. Come on in, folks. We got the game on, and we got the big game on that happened here a few days ago in Anchorage, I think, or around there.
Oh
This
yeah.
was the summit, and we thought we'd do a program on the summit since the time is now, I guess. We've got another one getting ready for this next weekend, but we thought we'd sneak in another quick one here on this. Um, I'm curious as to what you think about the summit, just general thoughts, and then we can go into detail
I
on it.
thought it was the Emperor of the East meeting the Emperor of the West in in
Yeah,
in, in, in historic territory. It used to be Russian Alaska.
yeah,
I I I I,
yeah,
I also think that Putin kind of dominated. It seemed to me that way. But Trump was
yeah,
gracious, and he had the B-2s overflying and rolled out the red
yeah,
carpet, and you know,
yeah. I think people misread that. I don't think that was supposed to be intimidating. I think that was like a 21 gun salute kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I agree.
Did you
It's
see the
funny.
presser that they
I
had?
started watching Fox News a little bit about it, and of course,
Uh-huh.
they're the mirror image of MSNBC, and they're just
Yeah.
as unreliable anymore. And
Oh,
they're still neocon central. Yeah, Trump left the plane there and gassed it up so he could take off and if he wanted to, and he welcomed him on his terms, and yeah, it's just.
yeah. They all sound like Sean Hannity over there sometimes,
Oh
I
yeah,
guess.
Sean Hannity's the mirror image of Rachel Maddow.
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of crazy. I quit watching. I mean, I see stuff like that on YouTube sometimes, but
Yeah,
when the last episode of The Sopranos went off in 2006, that's when I had them come take the cable.
really. Yeah,
Honestly, I'm absolutely serious about that.
yeah.
That was the last. And now there is something else that's well, I don't want to get into other extraneous stuff too much. But the did you see the presser today?
Yes,
Yes. Did you
yes, I
at
did.
the end of it, he was like, "Oh, by the way, I've been talking to President Putin, and he's expecting my call after I get done with you all." That's interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
that's you don't hear that every day. That I'm going to report back to the guy that you all hate and are afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. All has to me, and I said this at one point, and then I backed away from it. But I'm going to say it again. It's almost indistinguishable. It's almost like a surrender. This thing is, um, and I agree with you that Putin, to the extent that you can dominate when you have someone who's as alpha as Trump is around.
Hmm.
I think um, he did a pretty good job, especially at the press conference. I think he took I think he took 8 minutes, and Trump only took 4 minutes to speak at the press conference right after. But the main things that I see that have changed in this, well, the first thing is I'm pretty sure that it was Trump that wanted this.
Oh yeah.
Putin, I don't was Putin was like, yeah, I'll do it, but that was the message that Witkoff had,
Hmm.
and also that he probably what Trump said to Witkoff was, we got to end this. We got to get together with him.
Hmm.
Just make it happen. Say whatever you got to say, do whatever you got to do,
Hmm.
and I think that's probably because Trump's got domestic problems. The Epstein thing won't die. He's got
Yeah.
the neocons in his butt as far as the Ukraine thing. He's got MAGA on his butt as far as still staying in Ukraine,
Hmm.
and so things are difficult a little bit over here. But then he made that crazy threat of secondary sanctions, and that was one of the main things I think that this got him out of, because now I'm not sure how these things work because, like, if you throw a big brick in the water after the splash, you have room to do stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I look at it. Is you have a big summit, and is it? Oh, by the way, I'm going to back off of all the stuff with the secondary sanctions because
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think important enough.
Well, Trump dominated in the meta sense in that he totally flipped the script.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, before a week ago, a week before it was announced, or when it was announced, which I guess was a
Yeah.
week before Friday, all of Europe and the punditocracy and the establishment was just in a tizzy
Hmm.
because it's not, you know, it's something new. It's
Hmm.
like you're playing a game of chess and you're both into it. Then all of a sudden, one guy who's losing, or maybe not losing, just does that and scatters all the pieces. So
Hmm.
what happened before, and it no longer matters. Now it is back to be Biden's war,
Yeah.
and my my I'm convinced that this is true. That Trump, if he plays it right, and he keeps on putting it on Biden's lap, saying Biden's war, we're getting out little by little, even if he just peters out, even if the
Hmm.
West just peters out, then he will have saved his party for the midterms. If he does what the neocons want, then the Democrats are going to take over. But
Hmm.
because he needs MAGA, there's we do not. Basically, it's this: if we're still arming the Ukrainians and asking for 10 billion here, 30 billion there, and sending it over to them by November of 26, then we will have lost the election. Right now,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Democrats are losing the election,
Yeah. I
especially
can
with
see
what's
that.
going on in Texas and redistricting also in Ohio and in Florida. So, if all things being equal, we're not we're not going to keep the Senate, maybe pick up one or two, but we're going to probably pick up 6 to 10 in the House. In which
Yeah.
case, there'll be no more Democrat Party because what is Hakeem Jeffries going to offer? You know, so
Yeah.
so I'm looking at this politically, and so I think Trump knows this deep down, and that's why he wants to get out of it. That's my
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
take. That's long term. Okay.
Right. Well, I'm sure Trump is thinking all of that stuff. Um, that's something that he and his advisors, I'm sure, talk about on a daily basis. How is this going to affect the politics, especially the midterms? The main thing that I saw from this in the international sense was that he backed away from the idea of a ceasefire and has
Oh
gotten
yeah.
more comfortable with the idea of a comprehensive settlement, a comprehensive treaty. And people some people I've been online for a couple of days talking
Yeah.
about how this thing went with different people. And if what you're saying, if you're saying we don't need a ceasefire, is it's peachy keen fine for the Russians to keep on gaining ground. Because the main thing that's happening right now, besides all the jawing that these people are doing, whether it be in Anchorage with the two leaders or with all the other leaders that came to Washington, after Zelensky, well, they're doing all this talking. The Russians are gaining like 10, 15 kilometers a day
Oh yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in places, sometimes more than that. And they're making history on the ground
Yeah.
rather than the rest of it. And what Trump has said to him is like, I can't stop you,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I'm not, and I'm not going to try. Um, they he's talking about selling weapons to Europe in order to give to Ukraine for the
Yeah.
Europeans because that's what they want to do is to buy the weapons
Yeah.
from U.S. contractors. That actually is very smart on his part to say he bypasses the whole thing of like, you're shutting down our war, so you're an enemy of ours. I'm not shutting down your war. You send all the weapons you want over there. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's not that much money left, and there's
Right.
not that many weapons left because production is, I mean, we've got a whole private weapons industry here
Mm-hmm.
in the United States. Most of this stuff is nationalized in Russia, and that's why they have they're able to outproduce the entire West when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to weapons because they're not their managers in their factories are not owners of the factories. They're not thinking about bottom line. How long is this thing going to last? Why should I retool everything if it's not going to last very long? And on and on.
Yeah.
And ours do have to be concerned about that.
What's
And
a?
so
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and so that kind of puts us in a little bit of a bind as far as the weapons are concerned. But he's just saying, look, um, I don't want any more American money going towards this thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be, like you were saying, any more 10 billion, 20 billion, $50 billion bills coming through as long as I'm president. You can buy everything. I mean, I'm encouraging business. So you can buy all the weapons you want to from American contractors, whatever they're willing to make and
Mm-hmm.
send, over there to you. Um, I've noticed that your economies aren't in that great shape, so I don't know how much that's going to
Yeah.
help, but that's fine. But we're out of this thing.
Yeah.
It's Biden's war, like you were saying. That it's going to be a treaty means there doesn't have to be a ceasefire first, and it means that Russia's going to be at the table with the same set of demands that it had basically since
Right.
the war began, except for the addition of more provinces because of the expansion of their
What,
military.
what's a?
Um,
What's
yeah.
what's your take on what really happened there between Putin and Trump? I mean, what really was discussed? Do you think Ukraine was discussed, or was it something broader, more geostrategic?
Um, my guess is that they had the Ukraine thing pretty much settled before they got to Anchorage.
Mm-hmm.
I think he may have done one less pitch for a ceasefire,
Mm-hmm.
and that was rebuffed.
Mm-hmm.
But the news was so good on everything else, and this is what you're asking about, was so good on everything else that he considered it to be a win. And so he's like, well, okay, and he stayed for a little while, but they canceled the lunch afterwards. And they, both went back. So I think there was a lot of business done at
Yeah, I
this
think so
thing.
too. Especially with Witkoff there, and I also found out that Scott Bessant was there. He's the Secretary of the
Yeah.
Treasury, I believe.
Yeah.
And
He was there.
maybe even Lutnick, who's the Secretary of Commerce. I can't pin that down, but I heard that Hegseth, the
Excellent.
Secretary of Defense, was there as well.
Yeah.
But when I heard Besant being there as well as Witkoff, who is a businessman, he has no portfolio. I mean, no official portfolio.
Mhm.
I'm thinking, okay, there's lots of business deals being uh, discussed and agreed upon.
Yeah. I mean, I think that probably is the purpose of the trip
I think
is
so.
because they were talking over everybody else.
Yeah.
Whenever, like when they had the European leaders and Ursula von der Leyen said something about the children, getting the children back.
Hmm.
And he just changed the subject completely to,
Hmm.
and we got a good deal, out of you too. Just business. It's all business as far
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
he was concerned. And and I think that that's very smart because everybody wants to make money. And what you're telling them is we're going to, telling your own people, the Americans, we are going to make money in this hand over fist. I
Hmm.
promise you a golden age, I'm going to deliver on it. And the way to the Europeans' hearts is to figure out a way to make them to benefit from it
Hmm.
economically. And the best way to do that is to get rid of the sanctions so Germany can start, reindustrializing again,
Hmm.
if it's possible. I don't know
Yeah,
whether it is or not.
it's. I think that it's going to have to take a revolution or a massive rebellions in the streets of of the European streets for the elite of Europe to change their mind and say, "Oh yeah, yeah, let's make money." There's there's something demonic, delusional in the minds of van der Leyen and Macron and Keir Starmer, and you know, for some reason they're just reflexively Russophobic. Oh, Russian, oog, oog, bad, bad. Oog, oog.
Yeah.
There's no nuance. I mean, it's not like it was during the Cold War. I remember the Cold War. I mean, we bent over backwards to accommodate the Soviets, and they did the same with us because nobody wanted this to actually go to actual World War III. At least that's
Yeah.
the way I remember it. I mean,
Yeah.
sure, there are proxy wars: Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, but no head-to-head combat, nor even. I mean, I don't remember, but I remember reading about the Budapest uprising. I think it was in 1956,
Yeah.
and the Soviets put it down savagely,
Yeah.
and Eisenhower did nothing,
Yeah.
nor
That's true.
should he have.
Yeah, you're not gonna risk a war over that. And
In
Czechoslovakia
in
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 68
1968,
too.
during the Czech uprising, the Soviets put
Yeah.
that down massively. LBJ,
Yeah.
he had his hands full on Vietnam, but no, no. I mean, we condemn them in the strongest possible terms, and we look away. We don't
Yeah.
have a. I mean, when I look at Macron and Mertz and Starmer, and even these silly ladies that govern the Scandinavian defense departments, and the Baltic countries like Kaja Kallas.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, these are debutantes. Uh, they have
Yeah, those
no
people that spent a long
understanding
time
of.
believing their own BS. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, anyway, enough of that for me.
No, that's true. They spent a long time believing their own BS
Yeah,
and generating it and
yeah,
ingesting and brainwashing themselves into believing it. Because it, it all kind of makes sense in a way. Like if you think of the Soviet Union, it was a socialist country,
yeah,
and it wasn't just socialist in name. It was like you couldn't own private property. I mean, you had your own personal belongings and stuff,
yeah.
but you couldn't run a taxi service by yourself, and
Right.
certainly couldn't own, real estate or anything like that, a business. Um, and American liberals, towards the end, from the '60s, at least from the '60s onward, late '60s onward, they didn't really care. They were kind of like. Willing to overlook the fact that they're communists because they were very liberal in the sense of um, it's a huge welfare state.
Yeah,
We want a huge welfare state, and so
and
that's
they were secular. And let's
yeah.
be honest,
Secular.
our liberal elite, they don't like the church. However you define the church.
Well, that's you anticipated my point
Mhm.
that that was the other thing that they found common ground with, and then they were disappointed when the Soviet Union collapsed,
Yeah.
and they have never forgiven. Um, the Russian leadership or whatever, however they want to define it,
Mhm.
as having betrayed socialism
Yeah.
and having taken up the cross again.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why they're so upset. That's why the entire Unity Party is so upset because they're all the same. They're all
Mhm.
liberals or people who are actual liberals at heart, enabling liberals, but have to put on a show
Mhm.
for the folks back home.
Yeah.
And that's what almost the entire American political spectrum, besides MAGA, and there was a certain libertarian contingent in there that's a little bit different too. But that's about all there is in America is the Uniparty and MAGA anymore. Um, and MAGA's got it's not a religious based movement really, but it has a religious edge to it, and it is very aggressively against the deep state and the general. I don't want to say it's completely illiberal. There's not a MAGA doesn't seem to be concerned about. It wants to act within the Constitution, the constitutional framework, and there's a restoration to principles, basic principles, kind of air to it. But it's not the modern Western liberalism that we're accustomed to, that we've had for decades leading up to
Right.
basically Trump. Um, and so the whole thing's been inverted.
Yeah.
Um, and it's amazing to watch. It's an amazing time to be alive.
It is. It
Um,
is, and I'm glad to be alive. I mean, it's uh, although it can be an emotional roller coaster at times, but especially with Trump at the helm, I mean, because every day is something new. But
yeah,
but again, that goes to the whole spirit of how he's governing, just making the world topsy turvy from week to
yeah.
week, disobeying the judges, letting the judges come and put an injunction, but then him going out and doing it anyway. So far, the only misstep has been Epstein. Pam, the way Pam Bondi and Cash Patel and Dan Bongino made absolute fools of themselves. And although there, I think that by raising a hue and cry from both the MAGA base as well as from the Democrats, Trump can ultimately say, "Okay, fine. Here's the files. You got them. Here, here they are." You know,
Yeah.
but I mean, maybe I'm being too clever by half in supposing that.
Well,
Anyway,
he's got room to work there,
yeah,
because he's got the perfect excuse for any redactions that he's trying to protect innocent people.
yeah,
He can say to a certain extent that he's trying to protect people who are exploited, innocent.
hmm,
And so somebody's going to have a redactor's pen
hmm,
at this stuff before it's released. But at the same time, yeah, he did flub it up at
yeah,
first. And it, but it's almost, I'm not sure that he laid a trap, but it's almost, he's using it as that because
yeah.
I think he necessarily, I don't think it hurts the Republican Party if the Democrats are talking about Epstein.
Hmm.
I really don't. I think it hurts the Democrats if the Democrats are talking about Epstein because
Interesting.
Epstein is on the mind and they associate Epstein more with the Democratic Party than with the Republican Party.
Yeah, I could see
Um,
that. I can see
so,
that.
and I'm surprised. Hopefully, everybody will realize that there's no benefit really to anybody to keep talking about this unless you're going to do something about it.
Hmm.
But now, what do you think all this means as far as the Ukraine situation? What effects or what do you think we can see in the near term anyway? It's hard to predict anything further out than that.
Well,
Given what we've seen with the summit and with the leaders coming in, with the Zelensky coming in, and
from what I understand today, uh, uh, basically, I think that even the delusional European leaders understand that we're the big dog and we don't want to fight this war and we're not going to fight it for them, nor are we going to keep on giving money. So I think they're starting to reassess things. I just heard that Giorgia Meloni wants to pull Italy out of the EU or
Hmm,
NATO. I can't remember which one. Um, the UK is not in the EU; it is in NATO.
hmm,
So
yeah,
and again, I mean, I think Britain is so close to civil war, and it could
yeah,
spread that eventually the elites, the Macrons, the Starmers, the Mertzes, they're just going to have to just do what they can to not lose their heads.
yeah,
And then when Zelensky starts crying, they're just telling, well, we tried, dude. We tried your best. You know, we gave it our all, which they didn't, but
right.
yeah,
They uh, they are deeply ideologically committed in a sense, or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if commitment's the right word. They're involved to the extent that it benefits them greatly. Commitment actually, to me, means that you deep down in your core believe something. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they have a belief deep down in their core other than self-interest. And so that's the hope that I have, that they can figure out the wind's going to blow a different way,
Mm-hmm.
and that one way or the other, they're going to have to accept, the new reality.
Mm-hmm.
And in the long term, it doesn't necessarily matter, because if Russia keeps gaining ground in the Ukraine and eventually topples the Zelensky regime in Kiev, which they're going to have to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I think got to get rid of Zelensky and those people that are in Kiev. And the reason is, as our good friend Jim Jatras points out, the West is completely agreement incapable.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference what Trump says or what he
Right.
wants. Um, he can sign anything he wants to. You could even, I don't think you get the Senate to do it, but you get the Senate to, if you could get the Senate to ratify a treaty, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to abide by it.
Right.
And you can have this whole thing happen again. The Europeans are still talking about putting troops in Western Ukraine as part of security guarantees,
Yeah.
uh, pursuant to all this stuff. The Russians twice today, I think it was Lavrov and who's the spokesman, Maria, for
Maria
the
Zakharova.
yeah, Zakharova, um, have both said very loudly today that there's no possibility that we're going to allow European troops in Ukraine for any
Mm-hmm.
reason. And they were doing that in response to all this chirping
Mm-hmm.
about it from
Al-
Europeans.
Although, are we talking about NATO troops or are we talking about national contingents? I can see how the Poles and the Hungarians would go into the West, into Galicia, and patrol or protect their ethnic minorities. I could see that. In
Yeah,
which case, I think the Russians would allow it, because that would mean that, yes, Ukraine is now being dismembered.
yeah, I could see that, and I could see a UN force that was not composed of Western powers
Yeah,
could go in certain places as well, and the Russians would be okay with that, as long as they had as long as they could say, um, "You got to pull your people out because we don't like what's going on there,"
yeah,
which they
right,
would, because it's Russia. They they don't want to be
right.
targets. So, um,
But but yeah, I just think the Russians have all the cards, or they have a lot of cards, and Europe doesn't. And going back to what you said about the European elites, they probably don't have any core beliefs except self-interest. And I agree with you. However, there's another side to that coin, and that is that may be true, and it probably is true. They still have this instinctive Russophobia, which is just totally hallucinatory
yeah,
on their part, and that's it.
yeah,
I mean, they're just going to have to be replaced one by one. I mean,
that's
uh,
what's going to happen. Yeah.
yeah,
It's not going to take a whole lot longer. Probably within a decade, Europe will look very different as far
I
as
think so.
the political map is concerned,
I think so. Yeah.
because this probably was the tipping of the inevitability uh, part of this kind of wave that's occurring,
Mhm.
um, for everybody. Everybody's realizing it's inevitable. I mean, you and I, when we look at a map and we look at what the two sides have, uh, we can say, no, Russia's going to run all over them at the beginning of the war. And then when we look at what NATO has and what they're putting into it, we say, well, it's going to take some time, but Russia's still going to run over.
Mhm.
Uh, what's happened now with this thing with Trump is he's not even saying stop the war, really,
Mhm.
at this. I mean, he says, I want to stop the killing and everything, but he's
Right.
not committed to the idea of a ceasefire
Right.
anymore. Now, I just don't see how that. and especially his friendliness with Putin. The When he called him Vladimir at the press conference, I
Yeah,
think that was designed. He probably asked permission from him to do that. Um,
yeah,
I think that was designed mostly for the American audience
yeah.
and the European audience to say, "This is my friend," Vladimir Putin.
Hmm.
Normally, you wouldn't, in those circumstances, you wouldn't, even if you were fairly friendly, wouldn't use a person's first name only in
Right,
that.
right.
But it does send a signal, strong signal to
Hmm.
the United States people, all the elites in the press
Hmm.
and in Europe that I'm not really on your side. The Trump's,
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
not really on your side. I didn't like this war, and I'm cozy with Russia at this point, and y'all are just going to have to adapt.
Hmm.
Uh, that's kind of the message that I got from it, especially when he said at the presser, basically saying he's got Vladimir Putin on speed dial, and he's going to get with him as soon as they're over and report what's
Hmm.
gone on, been decided to him. Um, That almost sounds like there's a hierarchy of Putin at the top, Trump underneath, and the Europeans below. It's
Yeah,
not quite that because the United
yeah.
States are
It's
still very powerful,
yeah,
and Trump's not the kind of person who would take orders, and it wouldn't make any difference anyway because the next president's
yeah,
probably not gonna be as cozy. But it almost sounds that way when he's talking about it,
yeah.
and you get the impression that he's not going to pretend anymore. He's
Hmm.
just not gonna pretend that, this is gonna go anyway, but the way that everybody knows it's gonna go.
Hmm.
I think that was the message probably that came
Well,
across to me the strongest.
I mean, at the end of the day, when it's time to put the cards on the table, the European elites have to say, okay, we outnumber. I think there's 500 million of us, 145 million Russians. We can raise an army of a million men. Uh, Greeks, Bulgarians, Montenegrins, Serbs, Croats, Italians, Spaniards, Portuguese, a multinational army, Germans, and then just go and take take the battle to Russia's doorstep. But that's already been done twice before, and it didn't work out so well. And in my heart of hearts, I just don't see that the average European man really wants to suit up to go fight Russia.
Yeah,
Especially when he sees his own women being assaulted and raped by Middle Easterners and North Africans and Africans and all that.
yeah.
You know, it just he can't get a job. Inflation is bad. Germany has deindustrialized. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just I just don't see how it could happen.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I mean, they keep saying about making this big slush fund, for military stuff,
Yeah,
over there, but, I think it's just gonna be another um, pork fest,
yeah.
uh, that they're gonna pay each other out of.
Mhm.
I don't think any of them have. The only ones who might have just the basic courage to do anything would be the Poles.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're interested in fighting a war for people that they don't really like anyway.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly. I mean,
Catholic Church has made a big resurgence with the
uh,
traditional stuff over there.
well,
Um,
one of the ironies I picked up from I can't remember his name, but he's a Polish American and he lives in Poland. Name is Michael, something like that. Is that there's about maybe 3 million Ukrainian refugees living in Poland right now, and uh, applying for welfare benefits, of course, because they're
mhm,
refugees.
mhm,
Which that's a whole other story right there.
right,
But the Polish government asked them, "Well, what language should we address you in? It's your benefits and all that." And they said, "Oh, Russian." So
right.
I mean, it's like. is this what the Poles want? 3 million Russian-speaking Ukrainians living permanently in Poland?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just don't see it. Also, um, since this war started, there have been thousands of Poles who've volunteered to go fight for Ukraine, and they've already gotten casualties of about 2,000 KIA, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's that's sobering right there.
Yeah. Well, as a practical matter, if you just look at the correlation of forces of what the Russians have been able to build up and what they can produce manufacturing wise as far as weapons are concerned,
Mhm,
and the West, and the number of warm bodies that the West can put in suits in
mhm,
uniform, and what weapons we have left, that we we have to hold back a certain amount so that somebody doesn't come strolling into our countries.
yeah,
Um, that there's that consideration all the time. When you do the math on all of that, and Andrei Martyanov is big on this, war is just math. You just have to do the math and you'll figure it out.
yeah,
But there's a lot of truth to that. Um, when you think about that, consider the correlation of forces. The thing you realize is, um, if the United States and Western Europe could even put together an army
mhm,
of hundreds of thousands or 1,000,000 people,
mhm.
you can't get them there without the Russians not knowing about it,
Right,
without the
exactly.
Russians knowing about it.
Right.
And when the Russians know about it, they got submarines
Yeah,
and they got an air force,
yeah,
and they're gonna kill them before they get there.
yeah,
If they see
exactly.
large numbers of troops coming
Mhm.
towards
Yeah,
Ukraine,
yeah,
Article 5 is not gonna save anybody from anything,
yeah,
you know? So, there ain't any way to win. There's
yeah,
no way to win. And that was that's something I was saying online to somebody. All you have to do to really understand what Trump did at this meeting is to ask yourself, if I'm Donald Trump, how do I win in this situation? How do I
mhm,
personally,
mhm.
as the leader of the United States, obviously, but personally win in this situation? And the only way to win is to switch sides. That's it, because
Yeah,
Russians are going to win, and that you know. So he goes over to Anchorage, which used to be Russia, and has a
mhm,
meeting with Putin,
mhm,
and says, "No, we. I agree. We don't need a ceasefire. We need a comprehensive agreement, and your interests have to be taken into account, just as the Ukrainians do. And I'll try and sell it. He probably has in his possession redrafts of those treaties that Putin gave to NATO and to the United States, draft treaties before the war began about a new European security arrangement. He probably has something like that he's
mhm.
marketing to him,
Yeah, I
or
mean,
at least that's kind of a scheme,
yeah,
trying to market it to him.
yeah.
Uh,
You know,
they don't
I
take it; it doesn't make any difference. If the
uh,
U.S. backs out and Russia just keeps marching, then
uh,
it's going to be worse for him. So
I'm glad you said what you just said, because it crystallized in my mind what I'd said earlier in a very clumsy way about upsetting the apple cart. It
mm.
reminds me of Nixon going to China. I remember
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah,
And when that happened, the world just turned upside down overnight.
yeah,
It it uh it totally upset the apple cart. And I think maybe that's what we saw here. Probably not
yeah,
as dramatic, because it had been telegraphed for a while. Trump's whole campaign promise was built on, I'm going to stop this war within 24 hours. So,
yeah,
and I want peace. I'm tired of the killing, blah, 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 go on and on and on and on. So it's
yeah.
not like this was totally unanticipated, but
Right.
excuse me, it was a table turning event along the lines of Nixon going to China.
Yeah,
It's
I
analogous.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's popped in my mind several times during the course of this. Only
Mhm,
Trump could go to Russia or to Moscow. Only Nixon can go to China. Now, there are people in the independent analyst sphere. The main one I have in mind, I don't want to rag on him or anything because he's excellent when it comes to military stuff, is Brian Berletic.
mhm,
He's very cynical about the whole, and he has a great reason to be so,
mhm,
but he's even cynical about Trump's and MAGA's ability to do anything, or even their intentions of doing
right.
anything positive. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily. I don't think Trump is fully in power in the United States. There's
He's more in
still,
power now because of Anchorage than he was before, I think.
yeah, because he's put it
Yeah,
out there and he said, "I'm not playing anymore. I'm
yeah,
not pretending anymore. We're not going to play this game of the Russians are so evil
yeah,
and toxic and radioactive that we're not going to sit down with them and solve this problem." And that's the last thing that the deep state wants to hear for the wag the dog reason. I don't know if
yeah.
the our viewers know about a movie made in the '90s called Wag the Dog. It was
I uh, I remember
about the
that.
time that yeah, about the time that Clinton bombed Kosovo, I think, or bombed
Yeah,
not Kosovo, but
yeah,
bombed Serbs. Um,
Serbia. Yeah,
and the whole
yeah,
premise of the movie was that well, I don't want to go through the whole premise of the movie, but one of the pivotal scenes is when Connie, this is Robert De Niro, gets stopped by he and the people he with get stopped by the CIA,
uh,
and they're going to kill him because
uh,
they started this fake war, and the CIA knows that there's no war going on, and
yeah,
they're very suspicious. And what De Niro's character convinces them of is if there's no war, you've got no reason to exist.
yeah.
There's got to be a war. You got to pray that there's going to be a war. There has to be a war.
Mhm,
We're giving you a lifeline here. And after they let him out and they were all cordial with him and everything,
mhm.
and it's like they just hadn't thought it through. They just hadn't thought it through. And that's really the thing that you're dealing with the deep state is they're very paranoid.
Yeah,
They're quite secular, as we've gone over the whole religious
yeah,
angle as well, and they have to have an enemy. That's why they exist. And I think Trump is trying to give them another enemy: the drug cartels, people coming
right.
in across or doing all kinds of things, the domestic child trafficking, sex
Mhm.
trafficking and all that stuff. He's trying to redirect their guns
Right.
to the Americas.
And it's strategic of him to do so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's strategically smart for him to do so, and he'll pick off some of these people. Some of these people will say, "Yeah, well, if can't beat them, join them." You know,
Yeah.
it's. I mean, we talk about the deep state as a monolith, and you know, it. I view it more of as a collective.
Hmm.
Not as the Borg on the old Star Trek of the Next Generation, but not that soulless and mindless, but a collective. You know, it's like the faculty lounge at your typical university. You
Yeah.
know, you're not going to have a lot of diversity there. They're all going to think 75 to 80% the same thing on almost any random item you throw out there.
Hmm.
But that's not gonna be 100%. And the way I see the American deep state, well, I will I'll just be right honest with you. If, if October 7th, 2023 hadn't happened, and Israel conducted their ethnic cleansing, for want of a better word,
Hmm.
over the past 2 years, then the deep state would be more solidified in their Russophobia. But now they have to deal with Gaza.
Mm,
and you know they they have to decide which is more important, Israel or the Ukraine.
mm.
And
Yeah,
that's just that's just what I think. Yeah, I could be wrong about that.
yeah. I could see that.
Well,
Um,
and they're also thinking about Taiwan. I
yeah.
mean, we're going to have to go to war with China uh, in their mind,
So they say,
and
yeah.
and how are we going to do that?
I don't know where they're gonna get all the weapons and the soldiers to do all this fighting that they wanna do, and
Well,
what they put in their water that made them this aggressive,
I don't
foolishly
know.
aggressive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree, but 2027 is when that one Air Force general said that yeah, uh, Tai Taiwan's next, which which of course gives the Chinese every reason to keep on supporting Russia and Iran, you know, and to drag this out as long as possible to forestall America from going to war with them. So
yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, then it
That's
makes
another
sense.
little
They
tender
need
morsel that could be dangled in front of the deep state. Well, now what's more important? Is Russia more important or is China more important? You know, we got to think about that. If it's China that's more important, then we better wind this Ukraine thing down PDQ.
yeah. I'd rather them refocus their attention someplace else because I think, they've managed to kill between 1,000,000 and 1,500,000 Eastern Slavs, and,
Yeah,
that's more than enough.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
man,
if
people there
if
have a
anything,
long
concentrate your forces on Mexico and the cartels. Take them out.
yeah, yeah. Well, if you're just rattling sabers and doing naval exercises and boasting and rattling your, you know, all your weapons at China, and there's not a shooting war going on, then that's better than, what we have now. But
Yeah,
all this is stuff that's out of the think tanks and out of George Soros, who said, we can't get Americans and Western Europeans to do all this stuff. What we're going to have to do is Eastern Europeans will fight, and we're just going to have to convince them and use them as a proxy and pour weapons in there. And that's what the whole plan has been since the 90s. And as far as he's concerned, Soros,
okay.
and that's what's happened. Um, he's if I had to nominate people for Antichrist, he's he'd be real close to the top of the list.
Uh,
Um, just because of the effect he's had every place on everything. Um, so that's where we are.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Uh, well, that seemed like we covered pretty much
I think so.
everything we covered. Okay.
I totally enjoy this.
I do too. I love it. Yeah. I'll go ahead and stop us here.